Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's presentation on Ottumwa High School attendance plan with this year's project team, including Kaylee Adkins, Angela Fasella, Jeff Greiner, Marcy Camrick, and Ashley Stagner. We're excited to hear from you guys. Go ahead, Jeff, and take it away.
All right, thank you, Holly. I appreciate that introduction. Well, good afternoon, everyone. So I want you to take a moment and just think back to this morning. You probably heard that sound this morning, and you probably reached over and maybe hit that snooze button to get another 9 minutes. Maybe you got 18, maybe you got 27. I don't know. I'm not here to judge, but I want you to now think back to when you may have been 16, 17 years old. And your demographic may look just a little bit different today than what it did then. But what we have encountered here in our Ottumwa Leadership Academy project, the Ottumwa High School approached the academy and said that they have been having a problem with absenteeism. So we took on this project as a team, and we wanted to get back into, the mindset of what are these high schoolers going through. And that first decision of the day comes with that alarm, right? And they have to make a decision. Am I going to get up and go to school, or am I going to do something else? So that was our task that we had at hand, and we're going to walk through what we have decided to present to the school. So with that, I'll take and turn it over to Marcy.
All right. I have an example to share. My example includes myself, my brother, and my dad, whose name is Art, and my cousin Brian. So at this time, our house in town was close to my cousin Brian's house. And on our way to the bus stop, we would pick cousin Brian up. So this specific morning, we're knocking on cousin Brian's door. He's not answering. So we let ourselves in. And cousin Brian, he's not getting out of bed. He doesn't want to go to school. So at this point, my brother and I, we're getting kind of panicky. So we call my dad. And if you've never met my dad, he's a person that does not mess around. He comes to cousin Brian's house and he barges in his room and he shouts, "Get your out of bed, you're going to school today." And after that, we had no more issues with cousin Brian getting out of bed. So this leads us into our first slide, that everybody needs an art to motivate them to attend school.
So thanks to Marcy's dad, Art, her cousin Brian probably didn't miss very much school. And so he didn't fit into this description of chronic absenteeism, which is defined by the Ottumwa School District as students who miss 10% or more days of school per year. Ottumwa High School has a total of 1,254 students, and of that total, 409 of them have fit into that definition of chronic absenteeism. So let us consider that chronic absenteeism is a symptom of an under-resourced students. Sorry about that. So what we need to combat that symptom is we need to engage and recruit community members to help support, encourage, and motivate our students to attend school and get their education. So what we did to get started is we met with the Ottumwa School District key stakeholders, Vern Reed, who's our team champion and director of at-risk programming, Nicole Quaker, the superintendent, and Toby Mitchell, the truancy officer. We created and conducted a survey and gave it to the Aspire students at Ottumwa High School. And Aspire is a newly implemented program for under-resourced students. We took their answers and identified possible solutions based on what they gave us in their survey. And then we collaborated and decided on our team goal and action steps. So we'll talk about those things a little bit more in this presentation, but first we're going to talk about our survey and the results.
So as Ashley mentioned, we provided a survey with 4 questions to Aspire students at OHS, and they consisted of juniors and seniors. We received 57 responses. The questions we asked them were, how would you rate your attendance? What types of things interfere with your attendance? Are you planning on graduating from OHS? And what could the community or school do to help your attendance at school? So some of the answers we received were surprising. The first was that most of the kids did not identify that they had an attendance problem. 90%, the majority of them said they were there about 90% of the time. When we asked them what types of things interfere with my attendance, we received some answers like, I don't have a ride, or family situations. Maybe they just didn't like school. We also asked if they were planning on graduating from OHS. Most of them said yes, only 2 said no, and that was because they intended on moving back to Chicago. The last question we asked them is where we really hope to get some answers from the students. What could the school or community do to help with your attendance? We received all kinds of answers. A lot of kids said nothing, or I don't know, start school later, make better classes, even make sure the teachers are actually smarter than the students. None of that really helped us, but we did get a couple answers that we thought we could work with. One was to give us encouragement, and the other was going to their house to give them a ride to school. So Angela is going to talk to you about the different possibilities that we focused on as possible solutions.
So our first possible solution, after having spoken to the stakeholders, we found out that the Iowa state law mandates that students stay in school until the age of 16. So our first thought was, wow, we can just take care of this by changing the state law to mandate that kids have to stay in school until they turn 18 years old. So the advantage would be that this would mandate kids stay in school and they get their high school diplomas. The disadvantage would be that we would have to go to the state legislature, and there is a lot of time required in that. So this one was not realistic at all. Our second possible solution was looking at working with our team champion, Vern Reed, and his investigation class that comes out of his Bridges Out of Poverty training that he does. So the advantage of that would be working with him and developing a mentoring program to support students. And then the disadvantage would be looking at recruiting members in the community to assist with mentoring those students. Our third possible solution was something that students identified was issues with transportation. So we decided maybe we could come up with a transportation system that would allow students to have reliable transportation for their schooling or events. So the advantage would be, this would be positive in that kids would have someone to reach out to for that transportation. The disadvantage we discussed was identifying and recruiting community members that would be comfortable doing that and making sure that it would be a consistent process for those students.
So out of those possibilities, we came up with a project goal. We defined that as each chronic absentee student that attends the investigations class will be connected with a team of 2 to 3 mentors, will feel supported, encouraged, and motivated to increase their attendance at school by 50% after the completion of their investigations class. So we started working on this goal by aligning our goal with key stakeholders and continuing communication with them. We had to make sure that they were on board with our goal. We confirmed how the mentor background check process would work through the Ottumwa school system. We started actually recruiting mentors. We established a location to start the investigations class to be held at Hub Coffee. We recruited community partners that agreed to provide meals for free for the students who attended the class. Those churches, there were churches, North Court Baptist Church, Grace Methodist Church, Open Bible Church. We even had them scheduled and ready to go. And we had a start date of April 6, 2020. But then COVID-19 hit, and it blew our project out of the water, or so we thought. Early school closures made sure that no kids were going to school. But we didn't want to stop there. So Jeff, will you tell us what's next for our project?
Thanks, Kaylee. So yes, what's next? So we've had some changes. We've hit a little bit of a snag here. We didn't get the class kicked off because of some of the challenges with what's going on in the world today. But what we decided as a group was to now let's just try and put all of our work into a process, if you will, and then the school can take it and just run with it. If that's Vern, if that's another teacher here later this fall, but they can just take it and run with it and kind of take a checklist approach with how they can go about implementing this class. So that's a list of things that we've got here on this slide. You know, there's a couple questions still that need to be answered. Is the student gonna achieve some credit hours towards graduation with this class? And then they can go right down the list, recruiting mentors for the class, starting some of those background checks and training of mentors, confirm some meals with those community partners. And this one we've got a question mark by. We would like to you know, streamline this as much as possible. And if we could get a small budget for this investigations class and try and take out a lot of the administration work in getting the volunteers set up and the meals delivered and those type of things, to try and be as sustainable as possible. If we could get a budget line item in for the investigations class, that would be a good next step as well. We do not have that, so we've left that as a question mark, but that's still under discussion. And then the marketing strategy. What we have in mind is how can we promote this class to you know, our target group. And we're working now with a local organization to try and create a board, just a visual, so that it can be posted in high traffic areas within the school, so that we can get the word out to these students as they start in their school season. But there's so many unknowns at this point. What's the school going to look like here come this fall? And the state is still looking for those answers. Each school still has to define those answers. So there's a lot of unknowns at this point, but we would like to have this prepared and ready to go, and they can just hit the ground running when some of those definitions are really answered as we get close to the September start time. So with that, I would like to just open it up to any questions that you may have, and thank this team for working together.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much, and team, thank you so much. As a great presentation. I am going to go ahead and stop the recording, but thank you so much for all the hard work you did on this.